Julia went to her ex's wedding, and when she got there, she met someone she never would have imagined, which made her rethink everything she had felt for years. Before continuing, I invite you to subscribe to this channel so that we can continue sharing stories and life lessons with you every day. Meanwhile, Julia took a deep breath as she approached the luxurious wedding venue, the Jasmine Ballroom in Miami. The elegant blue dress she had chosen fit her body perfectly, and she quickly checked herself in a nearby mirror, seeking some reassurance. The reflection showed a beautiful young woman, but the anxiety in her eyes betrayed the whirlwind of emotions awaiting her. As she crossed the threshold, a wave of light and color enveloped her. The room was filled with white flowers, surrounded by delicate, twinkling lights reflecting off crystal glasses. The scent of jasmine and roses surrounded her, almost as if the universe was trying to comfort her. In the center of the room, her eyes fixed on Lucas. He was radiant, with a smile that exuded happiness beside Sarah, his new bride. Julia's heart tightened, and nostalgia hit her like a blow. It was impossible not to recall the moments they once shared, the laughter, and the plans that never came to fruition. She forced herself to look away, but the scene followed her like a shadow, insisting on staying alive in her mind. "You can do this, Julia. It's just a wedding," she murmured to herself, trying to summon courage. But the words felt hollow. As she moved among the guests, a sense of loss engulfed her. The smiles and conversations around her seemed to echo, but she felt isolated, as if watching everything through a foggy screen. The past was a painful memory, and every laugh reminded her of what she had lost. The music began to play, and to her despair, the melody was one they used to dance to together. Julia closed her eyes for a moment, and memories flooded in. She saw herself in another time, in a room lit only by candles, as Lucas held her in his arms and twirled her to the rhythm of the song. The laughter and loving glances felt so vivid, it was as if she could touch them. A tear rolled down her face, but she hurried to wipe it away, not wanting to attract attention. "Julia, are you okay?" a friend asked, approaching with concern. "You look pale." "I'm fine, just a little tired," she replied, forcing a smile that didn't even convince herself. "Just memories." The friend nodded empathetically, but Julia knew it wasn't just that. It was Lucas, the pain of seeing him so happy with someone else. The music continued, and the dance floor pulsed with the energy of the guests. Julia decided she needed some time alone. With an apologetic gesture, she moved away from the crowd, seeking a place where she could breathe. As she walked, her emotions dragged her down, and she felt adrift. Then she bumped into someone. The impact didn't make her fall, but it made her look up. Tom, a charming man with a warm smile, was there, holding a glass of champagne. "Sorry, I didn't see you," she said, trying to pull herself together. "No problem. I was just wondering if you might like a drink." "It looks like you could use a little joy," he replied, offering her the glass. "Champagne always helps." Julia hesitated, but his kindness touched her. She accepted the glass, and the coldness of the crystal against her hands brought a brief moment of comfort. "Thank you. I'm not exactly the life of the party today." "I can understand. Weddings can be complicated, can't they?" Tom said, watching her with a look that mixed compassion and curiosity. "Complicated is a kind word," Julia muttered, looking at the floor. "I just didn't expect to see him so happy." "You're talking about the groom?" he inquired, with a tone of understanding. "Yes, Lucas. He's my ex-boyfriend," she admitted, feeling strange opening up to a stranger. But there was something about Tom that made her feel comfortable, even if just for a brief moment. "I see. I've been in situations like that too. It's hard to deal with what happened," Tom replied, his gaze softening. "But maybe this wedding isn't the end, but just a new page in your story." Julia looked up, intrigued by the way he spoke. "Maybe you're right. I just need to find a way to move on." Tom smiled, and in that moment, amidst the chaos of feelings and memories, a small spark of hope began to glow inside her. Julia and Tom moved a little away from the dance floor, looking for a quieter place where they could talk without the loud music and flashing lights. The wedding environment was luxurious, but Julia felt that the opulence around her only accentuated the loneliness consuming her. She looked at Tom, who was watching her with a genuine expression of understanding. "You seem a little distant," he commented, tilting his head slightly. "What are you thinking?" She hesitated, but his kindness encouraged her to open up. I don't know. It's just that seeing Lucas with Sarah brings back so many memories. Sometimes it feels like we never really let go of certain people, right? Tom nodded, his blue eyes reflecting the soft light of the room. I understand. I've been through that too. My last relationship was complicated. Sometimes we cling to what didn't work out, and that can be painful. And you? Julia asked, curious. What happened? Tom took a deep breath, as if bringing up old memories. I was with a girl for 2 years. It was intense, full of passion, but in the end, it didn't work out. She wanted different things in life. I wanted to follow a path that didn't align with hers. It was hard to let go. And how did you do it? Julia asked, admiring his vulnerability. Well, I had to allow myself to feel the pain, but I also realized that I couldn't hold on to the past. Life goes on, and we need to choose to live, even if it means letting go of people we love. He replied, looking into her eyes. I learned to find joy in the little things. Julia felt a deep connection with Tom. He wasn't just a kind stranger, he understood her pain. I think I'm trying to do that now, she said, a shy smile forming on her lips. That's why I'm here, even if it means facing some ghosts. You're doing a great job, Tom said, praising her. Life is full of new beginnings. Sometimes we need someone to remind us of that. The conversation flowed naturally, and Julia felt relief sharing her pain with someone who didn't judge her. Would you like to dance? Tom asked, extending his hand to her. Julia hesitated for a brief moment, but the idea of escaping that heavy atmosphere appealed to her. She took his hand, and together they returned to the dance floor. The music changed to a softer melody, and as they danced, Julia felt the tension in her shoulders dissipate. Tom led her gently, and she allowed herself to relax, forgetting the pain of the past for a while. Laughing at a joke he made, she realized that despite the sadness, there was room for a new kind of happiness. You have a way of making me laugh, she commented, looking at him with a sparkle in her eyes. That's a talent I cultivate, he replied, winking. Laughter is the best medicine, isn't it? For sure, Julia agreed, feeling lighter. In that moment, the pain of the past seemed a bit more distant. The joy of being there, dancing with Tom, brought a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in a long time. However, as the two enjoyed themselves, Julia couldn't help but glance at Lucas and Sarah, who were in a corner exchanging vows. The image of them, so happy, made her heart tighten again. The connection she had felt with Tom brought a breath of life, but the reality of her past was still there, like an unwanted shadow. Hey, are you okay? Tom asked, noticing her distant look. If you need a break, we can leave. Julia shook her head, trying to sort out her feelings. It's just, I'm thinking about how complicated all of this is. I really want to move on, but it's hard when I see what I lost. Tom watched her with concern. If you need a breather, we can take a walk around the city. You don't have to stay here if you don't want to. She looked at him, feeling grateful for the support. Would you really do that? Leave the wedding? Of course. Life's too short to stay in a place where you don't feel good. Let's make the most of this moment. He encouraged her with a warm smile. Julia felt her heart warm. Maybe, beside Tom, she could rediscover parts of herself that she had lost. It was an uncertain step, but one she was willing to take. Julia walked through the streets of Miami, the city lights reflecting in her eyes as the warmth of the night enveloped her. Beside her, Tom felt more than just a stranger from the wedding. He had become a safe harbor amidst the storm of her feelings. The palm trees swayed gently in the wind, creating an almost magical atmosphere. She looked at him, an involuntary smile forming on her lips. You know, I never thought I'd leave the wedding like this, without another tear, and yes, on an adventure, Julia commented, her voice soft but full of new energy. Tom laughed, a warm laugh that seemed to echo in the breeze. And who would have thought a wedding could serve as a turning point? Sometimes life surprises us when we least expect it. Julia agreed, remembering how she felt suffocated inside the ballroom, while Lucas and Sarah's happiness surrounded her. Yeah, I needed something like this, something to get me out of that bubble. So what would you like to do now? Miami has a lot to offer, Tom suggested, his gaze fixed on the horizon. How about a coffee by the sea? I heard the view is amazing, Julia replied, the sparkle in her eyes betraying her excitement. Perfect. Let's go, he said, guiding her toward the cafe, as the sea breeze caressed their faces and the distant music from the parties mingled with the sound of the waves. Sitting at a table with the sand under their feet and the sound of the sea as a backdrop, Tom began to open up. You know, I'm also going through a rough patch. My ex-girlfriend and I broke up not too long ago. It was hard, but I knew it was for the best for both of us, he said, looking at the glass, a thoughtful expression on his face. Julia watched him attentively. How did you deal with it? I'm still trying to understand how to get over what I feel for Lucas. Tom lifted his gaze, meeting Julia's eyes. At first it was painful. I felt lost, but I realized I need to reconnect with myself. Sometimes we need to step out of our comfort zone to find true happiness. You're right, Julia reflected, gently touching the glass. I let myself be carried away by the idea that the love I had for Lucas was all I could have. But now I realize there are other ways to love, to be happy. Exactly, Tom smiled, his empathy reflected in every word. And you're here now. That's already a big step. As they talked, the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Julia felt a wave of gratitude as she realized that despite the pain she still carried, there was an uncertain but promising future. Tom's easy laughter resonated, and she found herself laughing along with him, as if there was no heavy past to carry. And what if we toast to new beginnings? Tom suggested, raising his glass. To new possibilities, Julia replied, toasting with him, the sound of the glass echoing like a promise of change. After a while, as they enjoyed each other's company, Tom leaned slightly forward, his expression becoming more serious. Julia, I know it's early, but I really like your company. You're an amazing person. She felt her heart race, a mixture of hope and fear. I like you too, Tom. You make me feel alive, like I haven't felt in a long time. Then let's enjoy this night. There's a beach party later. What do you think about going? He asked, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Let's go. I'd love to, Julia replied, feeling like life was finally starting to turn around. She knew there was still a lot to uncover about herself, but at that moment, beside Tom, everything seemed lighter, as if the chains of the past were dissolving, making way for something new and unexpected. The beach house party pulsed with vibrant energy, as the lights strung between the palm trees reflected the full moon illuminating the night. Julia and Tom danced together, their bodies moving to the rhythm of the captivating music. The heat of the atmosphere and the physical closeness between them sparked an irresistible chemistry that Julia didn't know still existed within her. She was so absorbed in her feelings that, for a moment, she completely forgot about Lucas and the wedding that had brought her there. You're a great dancer, Tom complimented, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. He pulled her closer, and Julia felt her heart race. Thank you. So are you. I didn't expect the night to be so fun, she replied, a shy smile forming on her face. The music shifted to a slower ballad, and instead of moving apart, they drew even closer. Julia could smell the ocean mixed with Tom's cologne, creating an aura that made her feel alive and desired. The connection between them was palpable, and Julia realized she was allowing herself to feel again, something she hadn't done in a long time. Tom watched her intently, as if trying to decipher every nuance of her face. You look really beautiful under the stars, he murmured, and Julia blushed. It was a simple compliment, but loaded with sincerity. Thank you, Tom. You're amazing too. It's strange, but I feel so light around you, Julia confessed, her voice almost a whisper. The vulnerability in her words made Tom look at her with a mix of admiration and affection. Sometimes life takes us down unexpected paths. The important thing is that we're here now, together, he replied, wrapping his arms around her as the music continued to cradle the moment. Julia felt a mix of happiness and fear, the happiness of connecting with someone new, and the fear of letting herself get carried away again. After a few dances, Tom suggested they go for a walk by the sea. Let's go outside. The sea breeze must be refreshing, he said, gently pulling her by the hand. Julia hesitated for a moment, but soon let herself be led. The idea of walking under the moonlight, away from the party and painful memories, was tempting. As soon as they reached the sand, the gentle breeze caressed their faces. Julia felt the cool sand under her bare feet as they walked side by side. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore was like a lullaby, and the tension that had once surrounded her began to dissipate. Have you ever had a love that marked you in a way you can never forget? Tom asked, breaking the silence as he watched the waves. Yes, I loved deeply, Julia replied, her voice trembling slightly as she spoke about Lucas. But sometimes I feel like that love is holding me back from moving forward. Tom stopped and turned to Julia, his deep eyes reflecting understanding. Love can be complicated, can't it? It's like a double-edged sword. It can bring us joy, but also pain. Exactly. I'm trying to figure out if I can open my heart again, Julia admitted, feeling more comfortable sharing her feelings with him. I really like you, Tom, but I'm afraid of getting hurt again. I understand, and it's completely normal to have that fear. But maybe it's time to give the new a chance, he suggested, encouraging her to look toward the future. Life is made of moments, and each one of them is worth living. Julia felt a wave of gratitude toward Tom. He not only distracted her from her pain, but also made her think about new possibilities. You're right. Sometimes we need to allow ourselves to feel and live, even if it means taking risks. As the conversation flowed into a more intimate space, the tension between them grew, and Julia couldn't help but move closer to him. Tom, noticing her movement, slowly leaned in, and their lips met in a soft and hesitant kiss. It was as if time had stopped, and all that existed at that moment was the connection between them. When they parted, Julia felt a flutter in her stomach, mixed with the euphoria of something new. That was unexpected, she murmured, her breath still quickened. Yes, but I think it was good, Tom replied with a shy smile. Maybe it's the beginning of something special. As they walked back to the party, Julia felt a mix of hope and uncertainty. The future was a mystery, but beside Tom, life seemed a little lighter, and love, though risky, was still possible. In the days following the wedding, Julia and Tom became inseparable. The sun shone brightly in Miami, and the city, with its stunning beaches and vibrant architecture, seemed to reflect the new energy pulsing within her. Every morning, Julia woke up with the expectation of seeing Tom, and with each meeting, she felt a little lighter. They explored every corner of the city, from the hustle and bustle of South Beach to the quiet streets of Wynwood, where the graffiti-covered walls told stories of art and resistance. On one of those days, as they walked along the hot beach sand, Tom turned to Julia, a mischievous smile on his lips. Have you ever tried an acai smoothie? It's like a hug in drink form. Julia laughed, imagining how a smoothie could be a hug, but soon let herself be carried away by the joke. If you promise not to leave me eating sand, I'm in. I promise I won't. He held out his hand to her. Let's find the best acai in town. As they walked, the conversation flowed naturally, as if they were old friends. Julia felt she was reconnecting not only with Tom, but with herself. The laughter, the stories exchanged, the way he made her feel. All of it helped her leave the past behind, even though a part of her was still hesitant. You know, Tom said as they walked back after visiting the cafe, I never thought I could connect so quickly with someone. It's like you have the right light. Light? Julia asked, intrigued. What do you mean? Yes. You know, that feeling that someone lights up your path, even on cloudy days. You're that light for me, Julia. Tom's words resonated deeply within her, warming her heart. However, even amidst the happiness, a shadow of uncertainty still lingered over her thoughts. The unexpected phone call from Lucas that she knew could happen at any moment kept her on edge. She tried to push the thought away, but for some reason, the uncertainty persisted. One day, while they were at a beachside bar, Tom introduced her to some of his friends. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and loud music, and Julia felt welcomed in this new circle. This is Julia, the girl who saved me from a disastrous acai smoothie, Tom joked, making everyone laugh. And I'm the girl who still doesn't know if I like acai, Julia replied, winking as she settled into her seat. The hours flew by, and although she was surrounded by friendly people, a phone ringing suddenly broke the lightness of the moment. Julia looked at the caller ID and froze when she saw Lucas's name. Her heart raced, and before she could think twice, she answered. Hi, Lucas, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Hi, Julia. I just wanted to know how you're doing. I missed you at the wedding. His voice was soft, almost melancholy. I'm fine, enjoying Miami, she replied, feeling a mix of emotion and confusion. I wish you were here. still have things to say. Lucas's declaration hit her hard like an unexpected wave. Lucas, I need time. I'm trying to move on, Julia said, her voice trembling. I understand, but you know you'll always have a special place in my heart. Can we talk? She hesitated, looking at Tom, who watched her with concern. The connection that was growing between them seemed threatened by this unexpected call from the past. I'll think about it, Julia replied, unsure of what she felt. She hung up, her heart heavy. Tom approached, his expression worried. Is everything okay? It's just a phone call. Something from the past, she murmured, trying to hide the confusion consuming her. Tom pulled her closer, as if he could protect her from that internal storm. If you need to talk, I'm here. Don't let it get to you. The comfort he offered was undeniable. But even so, Julia knew she needed a conversation with Lucas, a conversation that could give definitive closure to a chapter that, though painful, still tied her to a love that was once true. The future was uncertain, but the search for clarity became increasingly necessary. Julia entered the cafe with a heavy heart. The smell of fresh coffee and the soft sound of conversations in the background couldn't mask the storm of emotions consuming her. She sat at a corner table with a view of the entrance and soon saw Lucas enter. He looked so at ease, with a smile she knew well, but that now seemed distant. Time hadn't been kind to them, but the connection was still there, pulsing. Hi, Julia, Lucas said, approaching her with an expression that mixed surprise and apprehension. It's been a while since we last saw each other. Yes, it has. I've been busy, she replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The conversation flowed, but the tension hung between them like a loaded cloud. Julia tried not to think about the memories that came flooding back, but it was hard. Every word from Lucas seemed an echo of past moments, a reminder of what they once shared. Are you staying in Miami for a while? Lucas asked, his eyes fixed on hers as if searching for something that might be lost. I am. Tom has been showing me around the city. It's been interesting, Julia replied, hesitating as she mentioned Tom. The mention of her new friend made her heart race, but the memory of the kiss they shared on the beach was still fresh in her mind. Tom, he seems like a good guy, Lucas commented, and Julia noticed a slight hardening in his expression. You seem happy. I'm trying, she said, lowering her eyes, feeling the weight of her own confusion. What was happiness, after all? She thought of Tom, how he made her laugh, how he helped her rediscover parts of herself that had been dormant. But Lucas's presence dragged her back to a past she hadn't yet been able to leave behind. Lucas's words began to flow, as if he were opening up to her. I miss you, Julia. I feel like there's still something between us. I don't know if you feel the same. Julia looked at him, her heart racing. That sincerity caught her by surprise. Lucas, I don't know what to say. It's all been so confusing. You're about to get married. I know, but that doesn't change what I feel. You're still important to me, Lucas said, his eyes pleading for understanding. Do you still love me? The words hung in the air, and Julia felt lost. She didn't know if the answer was a yes or a no. When she finally said goodbye to Lucas, her feelings were more confused than ever. Desolate, Julia walked through the streets of Miami toward Tom's apartment. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky orange and pink, but she barely noticed the beauty around her. When she arrived, however, an unexpected scene awaited her. A woman was hurriedly leaving Tom's apartment, and Julia felt her stomach turn. Hi, Julia, the woman exclaimed, a nervous smile on her lips, before disappearing down the hallway. Julia's heart sank. The image of the woman, with her disheveled hair and wrinkled clothes, seemed to tell a story she didn't want to hear. Tom opened the door, visibly surprised to see her. Julia, I'm glad you came, he said, trying to hide the embarrassment. Who was she? Julia asked, trying to keep her voice steady, but the emotion betrayed her. She was just a friend who needed help. She was going through a tough time, Tom hurried to explain, his hands gesturing nervously. A friend who leaves your apartment in a rush? Julia felt disappointment bubbling up in her chest. You don't need to explain, Tom. I just thought we were in a different place. Julia, please don't think that way. I'm here for you, and you know it, he replied, searching her gaze. But Julia felt betrayed, the trust that was beginning to build crumbling like a house of cards. I need to go, she said, her voice breaking. She turned and left, feeling the cold of the night taking over her heart. Alone on the beach, Julia looked at the sea. The waves came and went, just like her feelings. What was love after all? An illusion? A minefield that left her lost and confused? Julia sat on the sand, the cool breeze caressing her face as she contemplated the uncertainty of the future. True love seemed like a mirage, always distant, and loneliness nestled in her chest, like an echo of something she never knew if she really had. Sometimes, life presents us with moments that challenge our ability to deal with the unexpected. The song at his wedding, which should have been just an echo of the past, turned into an opportunity to reflect on how we handle our own feelings and memories. Have you ever gone through something similar? How did you react when the past presented itself so strongly? The key to overcoming these situations is recognizing that, even when life seems cruel, there is always a lesson to be learned and room for personal growth. If this story touched you, share your own experiences and reflections in the comments, and click on the video that's appearing on your screen now. This is, in my opinion, one of the best stories I've ever told. And if you liked what you just heard, you'll definitely love this other story too. So subscribe to the channel, click on the video on your screen now, and I'll see you in a few seconds.